How's it going, everyone? Great to be back for Segue Spring Break Round 2 featuring myself and Ian. Today, we have the great pleasure and honor of listening to Simone White and Brenda Iijima read their poetry.
Are you sure?
And
That sounds a little. No way we could land a lineup like that. Are you sure you read it right? Read again. Let's
I
just.
actually, I actually know some people in the business, so I was able to pull a couple threads. And yeah,
That's.
so
I'm very excited.
yeah, me too, actually. Um, do we need to say anything before we get it started? Did we plug the James thing?
Oh, good point. So I think one thing we need to say is this reading is being recorded. That will not matter for you if you're in the audience until after the reading is over, when you will be invited to have your camera switch on. But so why am I telling you now? I don't know. Also, James Sherry, the inventor of the Segue Reading Series, some say the inventor of segues and reading series themselves, is doing a reading tonight in the POG series based in Tucson, Arizona. And I am now going to post in the chat a link to that
Oops,
reading.
already there. Our lovely friends at Artist Base have already put it in there,
Oh my God, thank you.
which we should also give thanks to.
Yeah,
Um,
maybe we introduce the team real quick. I'm Ian,
I'm Tasso,
and unseen but
and this is Segue.
and this is Segue. Unseen and pulling all the strings. The other half of the team bringing you this reading are Izzy Dow and Sarah O'Connell, who are doing all of the technical cinemagic that brings this poetry reading to your home.
Makes us look presentable.
That's right, in all ways except literally. I think we're ready to start. Yeah.
Yeah. So I am going to now introduce Simone White. Um, without further ado, this is called Simone White 2021 Playlist Win. In Quo Vadis in Dear Angel of Death, White writes, Black radio leaps by decade when we go to it in terms of memory. We make culture this way, entirely in retrospect. And I can't help but think of this retrospective, but also timekeeping relationship to art making as a kind of music video. After all, the best music videos make you think, wow, I didn't realize how beautiful that song was, or that I could listen to the song like that. Which is to say that what Simone White's poetry is for me is a music video, not for a single song, but for a multiplicity of playlists or a disassembling history of music, theory, writing, love, death, Black experience, and more. Her poetics could be a music video insofar as it offers a way of listening to the songs as just listed. The music video is about in a way that gifts us readers with an openness and intimacy of these threads of music. This is what makes the playlist White has assembled some of the most radiant poems I've ever read, as they list out purely, perhaps secretly or sacredly, the musicality which moves like subsurface rivers or fiber optic cables beneath these poems, or even this poetics, or even all poetics. I didn't know a playlist could be a poem, exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. That's me. I didn't know playlists were poems all along, more exclamation points. I also didn't know playlists were the conditions of poetry, more exclamation points. In Doll Baby, White writes, and I will quote a kind of long section, of the long poem, I had said there could be a sacred text, a sacred accompanying text, unreadable, but for its having been written and erased. But how to establish secrecy? Not undiscovered, not buried, then unearthed. Its paradigm is the burning bush, psychosis material, madness of cause. There must, I'm saying, be a listener, also mad, ready with testimony to extinguish doubt. There must be witness and whispering and uncrated objects that have not been touched except by these two. Is the playlist the sacred text, not quoting anymore, in the background of the long poem, a symphony of songs ringing together which the poetry is writing over and about as a form of listening or registering. The poetry of listening offering remixes and reharms akin to the guidance sound in music videos. I'm beginning to understand the listening involved in testimony as White imagines the club as the nomos of the modern towards the end of Dear Angel of Death, which I have here, and everyone should buy if there are copies left. Writing trap beat making is a methodology of surround so that we find ourselves in a club that we have not chosen to enter, though we have paid. The club is everywhere and everyone is in it. It is put on the internet. It flies through the air. I will quote and place this side by side with another angelic writing, one of my favorites, Outcast Spodioti Dopalicious, in parentheses, Angel of Death. So now you back in the trap, just that, trapped. Go and marinate on that for a minute, which prefigures the surround sound and sounding of trap music before the term's common usage as a genre with its intermittent empty spaces of horns. In both cases, the emphasis is always on the listener, the marination and reflection on the club or trap music or sacred spaces of the sovereign and all their complications. What White writes out for us is that what the whispering music about music of poetics, playlist making, and other forms of intimate listening offer is not only a form of truth which is not circumscribed by neo-colonial, capitalistic, neo-fascist notions of sovereignty, but that those very forms of listening and listening are also forms of living with or vibing with a history and community of Black radio and timekeeping. Thank you, Simone White, for teaching us how to listen and list in writing and music and beyond. Simone White is the author of Or on Being the Other Woman, forthcoming with Duke University Press, Dear Angel of Death, Of Being Dispersed, and House of Envy of All the World. Her writing has appeared in publications including Art Forum, Bomb, E-Flux Journal, the Chicago Review, and the New York Times Book Review. She teaches at the University of Pennsylvania, Sound off in silent clapping, so loud that we can hear it, for Simone White.
Thank you so much. It's nice to be heard, and I'm happy to be back at Segue at this awkward time on Saturday afternoon. Thanks for coming. I'm gonna read, just like read and try not to say that much in between. I'm gonna just say from the beginning that the poems in Or on Being the Other Woman like kind of represent a kind of formal crisis, I think, which has started to manifest as like a need to do other things, including write criticism, like a companion book of criticism. I'm going to read a little bit from that. I'm also going to read like a tiny bit of that. And I'm going to read a poem I started like 2 days ago, like a few sections from that to begin. And then I'll read a short section from Or on Being the Other Woman. It's actually not that short. And I'm going to start a timer. Open letter. This is for all y'all who say this form of address cannot even reach me. If Simone were able to reach me using this form of address, it would be because it was allowed, which it is not. There is no known form of address for this thing you think you are doing with respect to me. Take your breath in, you find yourself lost, stopped. In you, the spirit of vengeance stops itself. Ninth circle, you sweep your arms above your head, altering the current, but the currents know you not. Foreigner to the current belongs to the God of habitual funk. My God is the tournament God. She wears the silver bangle stolen from you when you were 19, upon those of inferior intelligence and superior guile. Whereas the cradle of address, going out, coming in, where it's possible to remember and encounter and what have you. Every intention crests, awaiting the widget proper to her vagina. Isn't this right? Ain't I correct? Hanging around or so-called haunting the area in which meeting would theoretically be possible, baby. There was technically an address implying notably those few dozen with whom I have technically had sex and also remember y'all's names. The machine implications of talking with, the non-identical parts and complexities of men. What terrors, what are the hours of your injuries, none of which swaggering in here too much authorize another set of movements throughout the pure day. Migrating warblers move this fourth month, only the young able to identify their colors against the color of the inferno, brick dust and brownstone. Hark, the female cardinal calls the baby, not you. A credible middle age ought to encroach upon the événement at 2, trying to talk with a man. The first time y'all started talking about betrayal, it was totally impossible to understand the frame of reference within which such an event might take place. Who, when, what, the whole configuration baffling beyond recognition, sense residing in the organization of attachment or desires, not some curiosity negated by irrational and figurative eruption, gestures of ghastliness. What my parlay therefore refused to be read. In fact, a type of curio that could be bought or refused totally. What kindness is among us, not the form of address of interest to y'all, is for spread, the language practice associated with gossip. Taking 2 fingers, touch them to the head down a 40-degree angle, not in greeting, in measurement of the space between me and the interface, measuring the prospect, its completeness is so small. One who works, such as myself, speaking to one who works also to the estrangement of labor. This is from the beginning of this essay, which is I'm calling Warring. The cat is like, she's very active. This is from Nikki Giovanni's When I Die, which I've been reading a lot. Please don't let them read Nikki Rosa. Maybe just let some Black woman who called herself my friend go around and collect each and every book, and let some Black man who said it was negative of me to want him to be a man collect every picture and poster and burn them, throw acid on them, shit on them, as they did me while I tried to live. Nikki Giovanni's It Was Negative of Me is a place to start by way of simply remembering she told about the punishments that come with saying the obvious about the shitting, which was shocking and unplanned. But everybody knew and knows that being shit on while trying to live is very much a condition of her world and her confinement to it, as is acceptance that her pain will cease only when she is good and truly dead. But I do not think Black women have to accept that we have to die or die out of the world or the world die out in order to better understand how shit affects us or is part of us. I wonder if this understanding can be accomplished without recourse to refusal of shit or liberation from shit, when everybody knows shit will be with us forever. I wonder whether, when someone inevitably shits on me, someone who calls herself my friend can be called upon to take me in stinking, to wash me, to curse whoever did it with no peace. I wonder whether withdrawal of the guarantee of my planned abject powerlessness would alter the very meaning of shitting on people, Black women people. There's a certain gallery of allies I wish to address at this point, not to argue, because if I'm wrong, it won't matter. And if I'm right, the truth is going to turn out to be impervious to logic. I'm thinking it is necessary and possible to optimize 2 programs that are running simultaneously but might have conflicting code. Black metaphysics is running in one place. Here, widespread critical agreement about the interconnectedness of objects and matter, indebted to the implications of quantum physics for more static conceptions of the behavior of things in space-time. has profound implications for continuing to think with the liberal subject of politics and the white personhood proposed as proper to its full realization. White people are again found to be played out, people of color played out with them. That formulation is an echo of the voice of Mike Veal talking to me a long time ago, but it's also jumping ahead to some remarks on rap music. In Black metaphysics, we look to the reasoning of Denise Ferreira da Silva in Toward a Global Idea of Race, where she mounts a groundbreaking challenge to critical racial theorizing and remapping of the contemporary global configuration that proceeds under the socio-historic logic of exclusion. I feel fucked up by Da Silva because if I take her claims seriously, the continuing dependence of US Black studies upon a Black subject who trajects historically toward freedom starts to look in terms of thought like a genealogical impasse. The questions Da Silva raises cut deep. What about Blackness is not already a product of modern representation? What of Black culture, those activities we celebrate as Black social life, does not reduce the fullness of our lives to oppositional effects of a corrupted subjectivity? Is what is called freedom drive not precisely a historic signifier of Black culture? And if that is so, wouldn't it also be true that critical corollaries of the practice of freedom, theorized as fugitivity and waywardness, might be viewed as descriptions of evasive stratagems natural to and fundamentally non-threatening within the modern and postmodern racial ontological regime? What is the current status of the time of this regime and the implications of belief in its end, constituted by the emergence of its others from what can only be called a plane of resistance, having already arrived? Black radical tradition is running in place. These are sections from Or on Being the Other Woman. Note the absence of wind from where I am, hunched in the kitchen, awaiting the return of my child. I blow smoke through rigged up exhaust, wonder, is this further evidence of having lost control of the present? That winds do not blow back my smoke upon me? Am I so off course to the natural world? My boy's prepositional weirdness tells the substance of his growth, which I approve. I too obsess on basic shit, more so wishing to be overtaken by heavenly voices, dark and deep talking to me anyway, none other than the God of, say, precious Lord. I did not know that aperture God, though I know the blank intimately this day, this filament God come through on very small air. The declarative sentence of the last generation of women poets, now nearly overtaken by doubt about the singularity of the action female. Very young women I teach struggle with the genre of words that constitute the feminine penumbra's thought afterlife. Do this, do that. We do not recognize ourselves in an attitude of defiance that proffers patriarchal regard. Sometimes I feel sorry for anyone who has not reached the conclusion that solitude is too pregnant a state to be rightly associated with desire. This is the beginning of a new spiritual and ethical position for a woman, based on the supposition of harmful intent, that another, male or female, even without realizing it, might very well want to hurt me, cause my subjugation. That's Alice Notley. That these lines exist is meaningful. Notley says words I see as affecting a response in me that is assent to belief. Conduction of the response, yes, all my flesh knows she is working one-on-one, level with the words to put them down as the force she feels in tension with the release of her gifts. Meditate in separate closets. These small rooms into which we carry defensively the hope not to be subjugated, not to be harmed. Feel sorry. Yes, they mean to harm you, Alice. In my reading this week, Linda Brent appeared and another Linda, the second giving advice about child support. Do this, do that, but I cannot bear to be told what to do. I sustain a lifelong peace with my best friend who says, you do not have to be in so much pain. What other choices can you make? Peace depends upon minute or incremental degrees of detachment from what must be a momentary thrill to subjugate the one in need of advice, a subtle ethical difference. I feel sorry for anyone who does not think of the garret, little boxes, places to think, as tiny dungeons where synapses learn later to remember you're being enfolded in a tight place, hidden and hiding. Did Linda Brent suffer from chronic pain because her body began to attack its memory of meditating in a separate closet, an autoimmune disease? When at first it became necessary to work away from my boy, necessary to spend days away from my child because I was working to make money for us, he was very small and not the kind of child to be carried about, in some ways an unmanageable baby, inflexible. The weight of our attachment would lift as I moved away from him in space. Emotionally, it was neutral, as I had not the resources to have any joy away from him, only anxious detachment. Enough to make possible our going on together as we are, I being his mother. Now he is a little kid, and I have taught him what words to say if he must call me to him. He abuses this privilege, calling out, "Mommy, I need you," whenever I'm out of his sight. Because he's experiencing new fears inside our apartment, I come slowly when he calls, but I answer immediately. He never need wait to hear my voice. To be without my boy will never again be a matter of being in solitude. Too much has already happened. I meditate then on the ways in which my solitude is being hidden and hiding or being held away, is, in other words, involuntary. Could no more abandon my love to instructions, feminism that instructs. I have to break off as I write of the sensation of being without my child. It makes so little sense to speak of it. I suppose I can arrest temporarily or for a long time my waiting to be reunited with him, to choose never to return, to have him taken away. We are then in a realm of absolute violence, not self-care, bald survivalism. I have been nearer to the gestures of mere survival than I would like, and I would not import them to my dreams, softening toward defiance as the tax on his maintenance is so extreme. I'm going to read this small section of a much longer poem, just because I've been thinking about Gail Jones a lot and writing about her a little bit. I think about Gail Jones. Once in a while, I read all the stories I can find about Gail Jones, her early books, her corregidora, her husband who cut his own throat with a knife in their house in Kentucky. Why was Gail Jones living in Kentucky? Wait, I always ask myself the same question and I don't look it up, and I'm not going to find out now either. In the night, while I'm lying awake for 2 or 3 hours, panicked about money or the loss of my lover or worrying about congenital alcoholism, I see before me a grieving and blood-spattered Gail Jones led away by police in handcuffs to a psychiatric hospital. I want to talk about abandonment. I don't believe poetry or writing or love want death from me. Rather, my son began using this word, rather, in the last 2 weeks, so I'm sensitized to beauty and iterations of being instead. Rather I am cheered by the absolute indifference of the universe to my desire. A long time ago, I gave over to godlessness. That is, there is no God, but there is something like division or departure or rapture that neither begins nor ends each time I am abandoned to an eruption of understanding. Months spent agonized and dumb end suddenly in a text message that includes the phrase, "this weird distance between us," wherein I learn of the distance as such, or have suddenly language for the helical structure of my own madness, which is danced comically in my body as passionate enjoyment of a form of intimacy I had not been taught to hope for. Our love, which is for the genius of one another, the mysterious arrangement of your power of sight and of listening, your blindness to the most basic rules, too, of matrimony and divorce, I love and laugh about, in my own being subject to those rules and knowing them by rote, because I was trained in the law by the ruling class, and because I have felt the power of the state come down on me, if only as infant incident to my father, the criminal, a man maximally disinterested in fairness. Passion twinned with disdain for the not knowing of men, not how or know how patriarchal ignorance of how my child's clothes are bought. When I say, your white woman lives on my back, and this becomes true again and again. Again, the distance which routes your belonging in the public world as a man is the end of me, so that I cannot be at all within its embrace. In your arms, my love, for all these reasons, I did not want to be a poet. If I have anything like a materiality, I see it in the discovery of how distance means between us and disturbs the thing I am, with all things. My spirit, which I have abandoned to you, cannot writhe at the door of that other world. I am outside that world I have tried to tell you in this poem. I have been put out of it and put myself out of it in love for you and with you. I'm just going to read this one tiny other section and conclude. The cat stepped on the timer, so I think I'm close. But this last little bit, which is a little nothing bit, but crucial to the thing anyway. I don't like techno at all. I keep saying I don't like house music. People ask, what about Detroit? What about Baltimore? I don't care about techno. I truly do not. Increasingly, I don't like jazz. The major public practitioners freak me out. I like Anthony Braxton. That's not a musical thing. I am very interested in electronic music and what DJs make when they stop playing clubs. I am interested in Black people and electronic music. I am interested in Jeff Mills. Thanks.
Damn. Thank you so much, Simone, for sharing those amazingly beautiful new pieces of writing. I look forward to when that new Oron Being the Other Woman comes out and some of the other pieces you read when those come out. Or yeah, thank you for reading them. We're gonna take sound off in the comments, make some cat emojis about the cat. I hope somebody clipped the cat stopping the timer. That felt really like some kind of, I don't know what that means, but somebody will have to interpret what a cat stepping on the timer means in the middle of a reading. We're going to take a little 5-minute break where we'll advertise the donation thing where all the money goes to the readers. So give up your savings there. And listen to a song, and then Ian will introduce Brenda. So stay tight, stick tight.
Hey, welcome back. That was an exciting intermission. Oh, I just saw that message in Texas. I didn't know what that meant. Simone, that was amazing. Thank you. So excited to be here. I'm going to introduce Brenda in 1 second. Before I do that, I just wanted to let you know that next week here at Segue, in your home, on your computer screen, we have Philip Marinovich and Joey Yarosalgazin. We're very excited about that reading. Also, just to remind you, if you did not just now, when you saw that intermission thing on your screen, hop over to Venmo or PayPal to toss your $5 in the hat. Please do it. The money goes directly to the readers, who are hardworking producers of art. Okay, maybe I'm stalling for time at this point because I am a little nervous and very excited to be introducing Brenda Iijima. Let me get this. Okay. Brenda Iijima lives in Brooklyn in a house that squats behind a tree she likes to call Herculean, where quietly and for decades she has made herself integral to the development of American poetry. Let's start with Brenda's work as the publisher of Portable Press at Yo-Yo Labs, a wellspring of urgent writing for just shy of 20 years now. I've never known exactly what makes the press so portable, though Brenda is the whole show, so I guess it's as portable as she is, or what else besides poetry the diligent technicians at Yo-Yo Labs are working on, though the phrase Yo-Yo Labs, conjuring at once science, play, and elusive modes of sense-making, is a perfect introduction to Brenda's poetic world. Portable Press has given a huge spark to the careers of numerous writers, publishing first chapbooks like Anna Gerton Wachter's Cyrus and Asya Wadood's We Too Are But the Fold, chapbooks by poets early in their careers like Nick DeBoer's The Formidable Competitive Weapon, Oki Sugumi's Underglazy, and Lauren Levine's Working, and a smaller number of full-length books, including Sarah Jane Stoner's Lammy finalist Experience in the Medium of Destruction, as well as work from more major and established artists like Jonas Mekas' Daybooks, Akila Oliver's August, and Kim Lyons' Phototherapeutic. If she were just a publisher and not also a writer, Brenda Iijima would be a major force in American poetry. But Brenda is, thank Jesus, also a poet. And her new book, Bionic Communality, that's not it. Her new book, Bionic Communality, out now from Roof, is cause for major celebration. For one thing, Brenda has what, if she were a painter, we might call a hand, a distinctive feel for ways of shaping language that brings a particular inner-worldly music to all of her work. And for all the tremendous variousness of Brenda's writing, a gathering of texts for which the name body of work is far more appropriate than in most writers' cases, there are certain core concerns that remain, I think, remarkably stable. Brenda, I'm going to interrupt myself. I don't speak any German at all, so I'm going to mangle a few words right now. But if you don't know the artist Ernst Haeckel, this guy, if you're familiar with these things, there's it's one for like mollusks and this one is for fungi, and I'm about to make reference to him. That's who I mean. I'll go back. Sorry. There are certain core concerns that remain, I think, remarkably stable across all of Brenda's work. Brenda, to me, is supremely an ecological poet. The word ecology is modeled on the German Ökologie, coined by Ernst Haeckel, the dude who made all those rad nature posters. The öko being taken from the Greek oikos, house, cognate with the wick in Bushwick, and the second syllable of parish via the Latin parochia. And I mean to say that I think Brenda is one of the great poets of home in the deepest and most constitutive sense. She is a poet of the self as home, the body as home, of social space as home, and for sure of our actual planet as actual home. A poet of the militant hearth and the instructive second sun that radiates from it. This is also, and crucially to say, the founding axiom of Brenda's work is a demand for justice across the forms of our living that is no less uncompromising for its being, brazenly and alas, impossible. In her poem Cloud Cloud, Brenda writes, "The lives of people glitter on pixelated screens. The new river has been directed toward the data center. Lakes and rivers cool the machines that store the contents. The images lose physicality. The amphibians are nowhere to be found. The new river has been directed toward the data center. There are under a dozen employees who run the data center. The employees who run the data center are no longer necessary. The new river has been directed toward the data center. Propinquity is everything on this ancient rock. Do they, we, us know where we are? One of my favorite pieces of Brenda's writing is her essay, Metamorphic Morphology with Gushing Igneous Interlude Meeting in Language. P is in poetry, poetry radical in terms of eco. Bit of a mouthful. The capstone of the eco-language reader that Brenda edited and as Portable Press co-published with Nightboat Books in 2010. After noting that we live in, quote, one compressed top-down world saturated with itself, where being is converted into abstractions of zeros and ones with decimal points to signal gross and net values, Brenda goes on with characteristic generosity to closely read a number of the authors she's published, alongside the likes of M. Norbese Philip, Antonio Negri, and Kamau Brathwaite. Finally, after citing a number of devastating ecological statistics, she releases an exclamation that I simply love and think echoes through a lot of her work. The only way I have of sharing this provocative information with you is through language. A deceptively powerful fact that is, I think, to borrow a very Brenda word, the lodestone of much of her richly terrestrial meander. Erica Hunt writes that Brenda's new book, Bionic Communality, quote, frames the thick plethora of interconnectedness for joint use by readers with the writer. Unfolding across a world where, in the last days of the bubble, human trauma circulates as drama in the cellar of the fallout consumer waste spillage, and FEMA camp weather declares something unending, a context for strategies of thinking. With eruptions of depleted officialese, flashes of intimate revelation, bursts of rewilding choreography, a roller coaster flux between desperation and esprit de corps, the unwavering presence of that hand, Brenda's inimitably angled line of talk and thought, Bionic Communality is urgent speech made real at last. From the book comes this, which in some ways feels to me like a description of Brenda's own writing. Split horsehairs, whale visions, rooster cries. We see an eye like the center of time. There are bees and moths, splinter in the deployed lanterns. Light refracts as a galaxy of implications. Lop the run-up on empty with a hyperstitional coalition of rock fervor. Love on you, earth, dirt, river. Cosmos is oceanic. Objects are paradoxical. And with that, I will shut up, except to say, please, all of you out there in the great digital invisible, stand on your couches and flip over your tables, go entirely genially apeshit to welcome poetry hero, writing legend, your friend and mine, Brenda Iijima.
Hello, everyone. I thought I'd start non-verbally. This book that I'm going to read from is a dance choreography as much as it is poetry. So I just wanted to access your other senses. And now I have a little infomercial because one of the thrills about publishing this book was I could link up with Will Alexander, who also has a book out from Root, The Combustion Cycle. It's just devastatingly gorgeous, smart, brilliant, essential. So instead of writing a blurb, I made a blurb mural that I'd like to share with you. And this is going to be probably not that successful. Oh, the hummingbird is kind of the most important part if you've read the book. Oh, Earth, there's Earth. There's some flora, a very gorgeous turtle. And this is what I imagine to be Will Alexander's childhood home, though I'm not certain, but the coordinates are correct. So, thank you. I also want to say it's like the greatest thrill and honor to read with Simone, who is like, oh, a visionary and the most acutely sensitive, probing intellect I know in America. So thank you for this honor. Thank you for putting us together, Ian and Tazo. And once again, thanks to James Sherry for all he does in so many capacities. So I'm going to read from Bionic Communality without further ado. Okay. Now, or the vacancy is replenished by catastrophe taking a form of total dependency. It is now and never to understand mutual calibration when body recedes into body or camouflages human excitement, a predicament of riding on the outside of a narcissist's wager. Come out wherever you are, strike at the heart of the epic, strike at wonder. It is now or a faulty horizon, a deep water chasm, broken wedge of expectation, calving submerged chambers, made to look swank with body impression. With all flora, fauna, and minerals, all presences, all heaped and engorged histories, rotting social content and context, with my genders, all sex, planetary and cosmic concern, with psychic commitment, sensory apparatus, a sex working, abundantly clearing, contact, i.e., body work, open interplay, crisis management, performative dissidence, corporeal questions, an aid organization, a dance troupe, interrelational terrestrial and cosmic presences, an insurgency influng in hometown by undisclosed toxic waste dumps, riverbeds, daybeds, hospices, cemeteries, city hall, and other municipal sites, forests, roadways, schools, and bridges. I found myself here as a prosthetic outside, slipstream, misstep, dislocation, senses version to accommodate disavowal, all that is breaking under the guise of fine, embarrasses the impression of normalcy. Here, this instant, this day, scrunched tightly in a ditch, uncovering history buried alive. The rawness of implication drips with tears. Vanquishment was a brutal achievement. Oppression is buffed to a shine. To peer at it, as if to render blinded, as if this reality wasn't the totalized living corpus. Genocidal facts receive but a byline. Now in the now, the weight is incontrovertible. Stumbling buckle at the gut, seize the heart. Recognize granularity in soil. I'm performing for full disclosure, caressing submerged implications of existence, fettered, unfettered. Composed of mutating membranes on the foothills of a mountain are fields. No one uses the term art in these parts. There's some food and hardship, jobs in a box. With every step a query of permission, so that ambulation is incredibly deliberate and slowed. Every pebble is consulted, every bush, venereal, floral entity, every photon of light. Deep history absorbed in the earth is summoned as blood returns to veins of iron lodged subterranean, magnetizes consciousness. Caregiving of patriarchal dying, as follicles flake off. When we kneel here on the soft moss, resonances of oldwood catastrophes burgeon. Relational balances yank at meaning. Complexities require revisitation. Become intimately conscious of street walking, meadow walking, forest walking, grave walking, of where a body is expected, anticipated, contested. Being white, no one shoots me outright. Mostly where I land is private property. Tiny paths of sidewalk cling, fringes of road for pedestrians few. Traditionally, those who walk are poor. Public lands, civic sites, and tracts of forest. Focus on how much law and mortal wounding it has taken to wrest space-time from indigenous nations, a ruinating eternal return as legislation continually refers to precedents. Jurisprudence as an overlay, thus outside comes on as power with the capacity to smother, formulating a plan to exclude modes of belonging as a timeline becomes numerical. I could be mangled and disposed of in the forest, as many of my sisters are torn and rotting, rank, reassembled by multicellular and unicellular organisms. The tiniest beings embody the person in a way a murderer cannot. A bionic relationship rebuilds the world within the world. In this series of movements, I trace femicide with ecocide and genocide, the triangle visible on currency, disposable income, a sign of comfort, and threatening. Every dollar is a henchman. From this vantage, the chimney of the fort appears crumbled and dilapidated. The fort is a strategic tool of enduring settler colonial violence. Tools rule, enclosure, disclosure, disposal, merger. Attachment and aversion are sides of the breastplate, spontaneously stripped bare, disabusing mergers and acquisitions. Dramatic enigma, seeding a diorama of time and space. One couldn't reproduce the weather like an instance, blow steam when rolling within neighborhood, unlike any gesture previously experienced. Just now to relieve the imagination, let down my guard, carriage a cell, a ball-like vessel, and it is revolving down the hill. Spurn the enthusiasm to bond with a shadow, find time to reconcile harm. The window is smashed, yet we must go on. Do I really need to go there? You need to go there. Techniques along the edge of worldly choreographic philosophies. As a locus of sharing, we walk on our graves as daily gesture. The body wants to write itself payroll, willingly, bodily, financially, infinitesimal signs. Fire, they go to the wall, jubilant, smirking. Civic space is semiotic, now possible talk. Do all communities require conformity? JPEG. Serpent undertones want to focus on a crucial dilemma, essential living, biocentric. Aggressiveness, we are in it. We presume to run it. They come over, they say they want to, but we are crushed and slinking against the sinkhole. Do it, ethics. Queue up, defined as order of existence. Intervention by crawling. We don't know how to talk about it. Transformation of time and labor, plastic. Aim at transformation, competition nook. Of war machines, DNA structures. Machine is disguised. Intensification. You want me to stand against the wall? We were forced to. We were forced to comply. Organs pressed against steel. Re-choreographed to loosen restrictions. Blur surveillance. Rupture, militarized silence. Straitjacket, sanctioned, like fear, tight molecules. Blob of protoplasm smear sick ass from well. Open aperture indeed, flung wide. River near anal oasis, the very question of existence. Alas, there has been a lot of murdering around here. Queue up, we want to, we want to, we want it, reality, crawl, typically viewed as a dependency model. In addition to crawling and gathering information, leverage with a big white fork. We contemplate killing animals killing each other, sustenance. By this point, she was wearing a studded collar. By this point, the highway was a steady stream of light and motion. Snake remained out of sight. A breast hangs out of her red silk dress. On all fours, she is the feminine as darkness, earth, dirt, lowly, death, humidity, and sexuality. The feminine as a system of representation, clean houses, forests, swamps, cesspools. Sink, 'tis sinking, a feeling, any sense of conviction, any sense of a joining, commanding, any sense of bonding, contending, sinkhole body patrol, or sinkhole knowing, leverage of pain in the joints, sockets, tendons, then roll away, roll into, foreplay, mailbox. My torso is lodged at the mailbox, as if stuck to it for Pete's sake. Sullen, this torso won't budge. Daily news. Frost is apparent, the surfaces are slick. Rigidified neural amphitheater of thick lust beckon a call from inside the sack. Brain body as wheel in space-time. Plunge seamlessly where the sensation nests. Dig into historical concatenation. Corporeal bulk suspended. Shiver into flow. The moon opens a window onto connectedness. Sorrow is a ruin living like rain. Brooms up our asses. Yes, yes, asses. Our assets, comparing our assets. Then comparing our nests. Successful hole from mouth to anus. The flow is admissible, is recoverable. The flow is regulatory and great. Time appears connected to eventuality of the reckoning that need to happen. A foregone conclusion fights away to reconciliation. To survive here, one needs holding. Lichens eat rocks, salvage material, mineral content, suck as they do. Disparaging names for people from rural places, mountain fairy, hick, or hag. Bandage stereotypes and topical breeches. There was a case in a point, not here, not her. Run back and forth between the trees with arms flailing above head. Every so often crash land with minor commotion. Stare at the surrounding atmosphere. A roundabout on the periphery of sensation. Look for tree line. If this were iconography, she'd stick her legs here. Instead solo. Not solo dancing for an unprepped public, discovered along the edges. Hello, I'm dancing. Don't be alarmed. Hello, this dance, outcome unknown. The nomenclature is unsure, derived from a communally expressed set of gestures, emanating from floral, faunal, and mineral presences, offered to a hometown collective unconscious, exercising the softest parts, exposing vital organs, laying bare pessimism and shame, dressing wounds with river, sky, and sun, movements that anticipate need. A seed anticipates the world. Stare down the crux with blinders off, semiotic evolution of selfhood, evocative of sociality as a practice, exacerbation time is living. Make a case for how we can coexist together, modeling holism. The wreckage here is particular to the immediacy of spatial coordinates, longitudinal and latitudinal, global as a worldly dimension. Dwelling on femicide in a downward spiral, dwelling on nation building, the cause of unending grief, a worldly echo genocide, ecocide, again, here, specifically here. The Mohican, Pohumtuck, and Munsee people, displaced from, specifically, displaced. Chronology, a blood thermometer, settler colonial financial strategy of disastrous expectation, commerce that trades in human futures and past lives, never surfeited, loosely built stone rows of wind holes, embrasure in stone columns, slabs of slate, granite, backfilled to the present. Thank you so much.
Wow. I hope everybody is going crazy in their homes. We can't see you, so it's the honor system for going crazy in
I
response.
think everyone's doing this right now.
Definitely. That was amazing. Thank you, Brenda. Thank you, Simone. I think now is the time when everybody will be made visible. You can switch your camera on and we can all have a hang in cyberspace, which doesn't exist. Before that happens, real quick, I just wanted to remind you that next week we'll have Philip Marinovich and Joey Urisalgazin. Incredibly exciting news. The only thing that can console us now that we're all sad that this reading is beginning its final stages.